The NFL season is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is almost here. I know plenty of you have drafts coming up, might have just done your draft, hopefully not the case, because we have brought in one of the foremost experts in fantasy football to help you win your league. We are joined today by Scott Barrett from fantasypoints.com, the CEO of Fantasy Points, and a real-life fantasy football expert. Scott, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Ari.
So let's get into the top guys. You got, let's say, the third, fourth, fifth pick in the draft. Who do you like at the top of the boards, and who would I avoid if I have one of the top picks?
Yeah, to me, this year is a unique year where the top four picks, for me, are all wide receivers. I have it Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, then the running backs, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler. When you're talking about round one, it's kind of hard to find a player you don't really like in round one. They're priced in round one for a reason. But if I'm avoiding any of them, to me, it's CeeDee Lamb. He's going pick 11, pick 12. I would have him about pick 16, pick 17. I just don't know why you would draft him when you can draft Keenan Allen 2 rounds later. I think if you guarantee me Keenan Allen is going to stay fully healthy, I'd bet he outscores CeeDee Lamb this year. And a big reason why is that offensive coordinator change. Kellen Moore, formerly with the Cowboys, now with the Chargers, his offense is typically very aggressive, very pass heavy, run at a really fast pace. But now he's out of the pick. He's no longer there in Dallas. He was fired by Mike McCarthy because, quote unquote, he wanted to run up the scoreboard when I just wanted to run the damn ball to rest my defense. So really worry about pace of play, Dallas going a bit too run heavy this year. And again, so I just draft Keenan Allen 2 rounds later, who's going to get that CeeDee Lamb role in this Chargers offense.
That's interesting that in the first few spots, almost everyone goes running back. If you have 1-1, 1-2. Why are you going receiver this year at the top few picks over a running back?
Yeah, it all depends on where the value is. And to me, I'm seeing a lot of value round 5, round 6 for the running backs that I'm not seeing for the wide receivers. So to me, that makes it a lot easier for me to pass on a round 1 running back plus, the top 4 wide receivers I mentioned. I don't know that the NFL has ever had top 4 wide receivers, has ever had 4 wide receivers of that caliber playing at the same time on an NFL field. So really feel good about that. And then just about every one of the running backs you can poke a number of holes in. Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, I love those running backs, the top 2 running backs off the board, but they're both approaching the age cliff. McCaffrey last year, his volume took a big hit when Elijah Mitchell was healthy. Austin Eckler, I worry about Kellen Moore kind of reeling in some of those cheat code dump off, check down targets, and like I said, pushing the ball down the field a bit more, being more aggressive.
Let's see, we get Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, some of those guys are out of the picture. What quarterback should I be targeting if I'm not able to get one of the top 3-4 guys?
So I like really pushing the limits and drafting a quarterback just about after any of the other players I really like testing the limits and being one of the last people in my league to draft a quarterback. So if you're looking for a sleeper this year, for me, it's Anthony Richardson. He's the most athletic quarterback in NFL history. He's one of the most athletic players in NFL history. In fantasy football, a rushing quarterback is something of a cheat code, and he averaged over 10 yards per carry in college. He eclipsed 90 rushing yards 6 times. He only started 13 career games. His NFL head coach and play caller, Shane Steichen, helped Justin Herbert set NFL records for a rookie quarterback by passing yards per game, by passing touchdowns. And then Jalen Hurts, the last 2 seasons, has been a fantasy juggernaut. And if Jonathan Taylor continues to hold out, or if he gets traded, I really see them having to lean on Anthony Richardson. He might be scoring every single one of their touchdowns this year, racking up a number of rushing yards. So that is my quarterback sleeper this year.
Every year you have an article you call My Guys, where you go through a set of guys that you like that you're going to try to pick on all of your teams or that you're going to target for daily. Who are some of your guys? Tell me some guys I should be targeting.
Christian Watson is definitely one of them. He was one of my guys when he came out of college. college, freak athlete, but also his analytical numbers, his profile was, I thought, a lot better than what everyone else was giving him credit for. But last year, his numbers were off the charts. My comp for Christian Watson when he was coming out was if Randy Moss were mortal, except he looked fairly divine last season. He led all players in fantasy points per route run from week 10 on, once he finally started to get full-time usage. He ranked 9th in fantasy points per game. He ended the season with one of the top 7 best ever yards per route run. That's a really predictive efficiency metric of any rookie wide receiver in about 15 years. Really bodes well for his future and this year as well.
Who else you got?
Darren Waller at tight end. He's my must-draft tight end. I do not want to leave a draft without him. Darren Waller, round 5, every single draft. The Giants got him to be their wide receiver 1. All indications are this is Daniel Jones' favorite receiver. This might be the best wide receiver that Daniel Jones has ever had, but he comes with a tight end designation. And for fantasy, it's basically Travis Kelce's an oligarch, and then there's a bunch of peasants behind him. But I really see a lot of oligarch potential for Darren Waller. I think he could finish as a fantasy wide receiver 1, top 12 in fantasy points per game, which is such a cheat code when you have that tight end designation.
We know there's a couple of ways you can win your league. One is obviously hitting the high picks, and another is getting the deep sleepers, getting the guys that no one else has ever heard of. This is your wheelhouse here. Tell me some guys to go after that maybe some of the folks at home have never heard of.
So Zach Moss, do not leave your draft without him. He's going undrafted in the majority of leagues. So, the second to last pick, the last pick, draft Zach Moss. He's currently the RB2 for the Colts. And as we all know, Jonathan Taylor might be holding out. He might be getting traded. And so at a price tag of basically free, just a chance he's Indianapolis's new workhorse, I don't want to pass up on that. Another player I really like is Justin Ross. He's always going to be one of my guys. He had arguably the greatest season in college football history as a freshman. He was really good as a sophomore, and then we know a number of health issues after that, but he's tearing it up in preseason. I think he's more talented than MVS. I think he's more talented than Justin Watson. I think he's more talented than Sky Moore. So if you give him a chance, I think he could be Kansas City's wide receiver 1. It's going to take some time. It won't be week 1, might be week 9, but if that's right, he could really be a league winner and a player you need to have on your rosters.
So let's talk about the Texans, because the last couple of years there's not been a lot of guys to really go after on this team. Maybe it's a little bit better this year. Tell me, if you're a Texans fan, which guy should I be targeting?
Yeah, so there's definitely one player I want to be drafting, and unfortunately it's only one player, but that's Damien Pierce, a player I loved coming out of college. I thought he was super underrated. He was great last year. He led all running backs in yards after contact, in percentage of rushing yards coming after contact. What that means is his offensive line wasn't doing him a lot of favors, but he did a really good job racking up the tough yards on his own. Last season, he finished 21st in fantasy points per game. On NFL.com, he's being drafted as the 21st running back, and I think he smashes that because this preseason, he's been basically an every down player with the first team offense. He's not coming off the field in obvious passing situations, which was the case last year. He lost a little bit of weight, and he asked him, why'd you lose that weight? And he's like, because Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator, has got me running all these routes. And so targets are huge in fantasy. In a PPR league, targets are worth 2.5 times as much as a carry. And so he didn't have that to his game last season when he finishes the RB21. Add that in, and he could really be a player you need to have on your teams. So
only Pierce. So I like Tank Dell. I like Dalton Schultz. Tell me your thoughts on those two guys.
Yeah, so I like Tank Dell. I think he's a really strong late round pick. I'm hearing Robert Woods, they want to be their wide receiver 1 this year, but I mean, who knows how much he still has left in the tank at this point of his career. Pun unintentional. Tank, obviously, really exciting prospect. He led all NCAA wide receivers in receptions and yards and ranked 2nd in touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. A bit undersized, that's why he kind of fell in the draft, but seemed to me to be very pro-ready. And yeah, if there is a guy after Pierce, I think it's Tank Dell. Dalton Schultz, I just worry about his usage this preseason. He wasn't an every down player like he was with Dallas under Kellen Moore. I'd rather draft Gerald Everett just on the off chance that he's their new Dalton Schultz. And Schultz, I just don't think is that talented. I mean, he kind of was neglected in free agency. The deal he signed with the Texans was less than it was for CJ Uzomah, Will Dissly, Tyler Conklin. So kind of tells you what the NFL thinks about him.
All right, last thing. How am I winning my league? What are some of the just overall keys to winning fantasy football?
First 4 rounds of your draft need to be running backs or wide receivers. Round 5, me personally, I'm taking Darren Waller. I think you're better off being one of the last people in your league to draft a quarterback. That changes if you're in a standard or half-point PPR league, but the majority PPR, you kind of want to wait at the quarterback position. And the most important point is you want to be a home run hitter. It's okay to strike out because you always have the floor of the waiver wire to fall back on. So really chase upside with every single pick, especially after round 6. You want to focus on upside more than anything else.
All right, chase upside. Not a fantasy football player, but it is the strategy that you want to take on. Scott Barrett, the CEO of Fantasy Points and fantasy football expert, helping you win your league.